This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm your host, Steve Gould. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is episode number 113. So that's probably well over 113 hours of just crazy stories from the men and women of law enforcement as they live them. So if you're new here, I encourage you to not only hear this one, but look back through the catalog of episodes. It's pretty much evergreen content. You can listen to it, pick any one you want, but they're each one is not to my own credit, but to the guests that come on. They have just lived incredible lives, and the crazy things they see and endure, and the trauma of being a police officer in the modern age is just spectacular and insane. So that's what the show is here for, to get that out there to the masses so people can have a better appreciation for what these men and women do. I want to thank you guys all for rating and reviewing on iTunes. They keep pouring in. It's awesome. We're over 700 reviews now, mostly 5-star. And I'd love to get to 1,000 because it just helps legitimize your podcast. And I've been getting a lot of eyes on it lately. Sponsors have been reaching out, so it's really cool. I appreciate you doing that. If you really love the show and you really want to show your support, Patreon is the place to do it. Link will be in the show notes, also at thingspolicec.com. Couple tiers to choose from. I give you extras with it. I'll mail you a little vinyl logo sticker for Things Police See. People really like that. It's kind of a cool design. Chat back and forth. It's like a little community there. It's not just you donating, but you're going to get extras, and it's like a little Facebook page where I post different content that nobody else gets to see. So if you love the show, do that. Truly appreciate that. But right now, now that I mentioned that, I'm gonna read off the sergeants tier, the Sarges from Things Police See, the people I love, the people I'm in love with that support the show. I'm talking about David Viveros, the great Bill Broadway, Ricardo Zuniga, the great Thomas Connell, Luke Irving, Corey Payne, Jacob Ruth, Rich Emery, Scott O'Donnell, David Diaz. Keeps going, guys. The great Mike Wynn, Nathan Gowan, Jason Lau, Dylan Perozic, Sarah Pomeroy, the great Sarah Pomeroy, Lauren Stimson, Alex Wazik, Brandon Hooker, Jake Pinedo, John Shoemaker, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, William James Long, Andrew Biggs, Chris June, Adam Mihal, the great Gary Steiner, and the magnificent Lane Campbell. I got them all out there. Thank you. Thank you guys for donating and supporting the show. Been getting more and more people doing that, and it's really great. I love it. I think I'm going to have to break up reading those into like one, maybe one at the beginning of the show, one after. It's a good problem to have, though, guys. So thank you for that. Without further ado, I want to bring on this week's guest. This retired sergeant, 25 years on the Broward County Sheriff's Department, and Broward County is wild and crazy. He was a SWAT negotiator for 13 years. He was in the organized crime unit at the airport. He is the author of the book The Hurt, true crime, real-life drama. He's featured on Cops in 1989, the first 5 or 6 episodes. Just going to be a lot of fun to have this guy. So without further ado, let me bring on Glenn Topping. Glenn, welcome to the show, my man.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm honored to have you. Cops in 1989. We were saying before we started recording, I was like 10 years old, and it was like that Cops came on, and it was like, holy cow, they're showing police work on television.
Yeah, it was something new and exciting back then, and it was a lot of fun being on it. And sometimes you got in a little bit of trouble on it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think John Kelly and I, who you know, he's a past guest here, we talked about it a little bit, and it was like nobody agreed to do that except for like, I think the first sign-ons were Southern departments were like, bring it on, let's do it.
Yeah, they liked it because they showcased their department and the city, so they benefited on both ends.
And they were, I always wondered how much control they must have signed something where the chief of police or some commander would have a lot of input or control of what went out there, right? Like they didn't just let them feel carte blanche.
Well, actually, it kind of was carte blanche because the sheriff gave them all IDs. They can go anywhere they wanted to go. from the basic call to homicide scenes. They were restricted nowhere. And we had no special instructions from the sheriff to not do anything or do something. Whatever happened, happened. And you lived with it.
Wow, that's really incredible. That's was that terrifying a little bit? We're like these, because back then even the cameras were huge. They're following you around.
Yeah, it was. Sometimes it was to the point where you said something and you saw it on the show later on, and they got called into the boss's office and said, why did you say that, or why did you do that? I said, well, we were told, do what we want,
Yeah, that's not a good scenario. I don't like that setup at all. But I'm glad you guys agreed to it because it caught on. I think all the states ended up doing it. Most of them. California was definitely on there. I don't remember. I don't think they got into New England too much. I don't remember seeing Massachusetts on there or stuff like that. It was mostly Southern and Western.
Yeah, I think they were pretty much all over the country and obviously outside the country. Yeah,
it was very cool. So let's kind of get down to brass tacks here. When there was a young officer topping roaming the streets, Southern Florida. Can you tell us about your first hot call you responded to? The first call that really got your blood pumping.
Sure. As a new guy on the road, maybe about a week into the job, heard an officer scream for help over the radio. And again, new in the city, not real familiar yet with everything. I have to get there, and I'm trying to race there, and my adrenaline is pumping like, oh, this is it. This is the call. Let's go.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'm still a little distance away from it. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, we got the guy in custody. Slow everybody down. It's like, shoot, come on, man. I got to have this adrenaline dump now somewhere. I might as well do it there or I go to my car.
Yeah.
So I got there. I slowed down. I got there. Everything was calmed down more or less. And that was it.
Yeah, kind of a letdown. You're kind of relieved, but you're also kind of like you said, your body's got all this energy to give off now.
Yeah. So I did. We still hung around, saw what happened, helped out while I got there, and then left and went back on patrol. Yeah,
and such is police work. I remember in Police Academy showing us that graph of why you're not going to live as long as anybody else. They show the normal person's adrenaline spikes in recovery over the course of a year, and then a police officer's over the course of a week. It's looks like a cardiac chart. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh yeah,
not normal.
Well, they do say that it's 7 hours of boredom followed by 1 hour of sheer terror.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember a Maine game warden told me that. I said, "What's it like being up way up north in the woods there?" And because they have some crazy stuff going on, especially with the Canadian border in the woods. And he said the same up there. He said it's 99% of the time you're just bored out of your mind. He goes, 1% of the time you think you're going to die. That's the job.
That's nice.
Yeah,
it's the job.
Wonderful. And the Maine wardens, they're we refer to them in New England as the real wardens. These guys, they go to police academy and then they have an island on the coast of Maine where they do their special warden induction. And it's from what I hear, it's no joke. They these guys they'll get dropped by a helicopter out in the woods to walk out walk out to you on a river and go, hey, where's your license? No license, cash bail. Give me the money. Black flies all over their face.
Oh, nice. Oh, sounds fun. Hey, if you like that kind of job, that's great.
Yeah, if you're a woodsman, it's fine, I guess. Yeah. So those first calls, you notice. Obviously as you progress in your police career, you'll become a little more calloused and you don't react the exact same. But that adrenaline jumps, they make the big. People might notice this. Young coppers might notice this. Your voice gets restricted a little bit on the radio. You kind of have to and then your large muscle groups, your legs can get jumpy. Because it's literally your body's dropping chemicals, and it's hey, let's do it. It's time to go. And then
and then it shuts down quick.
Yeah, and then there's nothing, and you're and then you figure out that a lot of the stuff you'll get dispatched to ends up being like that. You go hot, and then you get you're pulling in the driveway, and they're actually miscommunication. There is not an emergency, and you're
right,
got it.
Too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
There'll be others.
True. Absolutely true. It's a never-ending tidal wave. Glenn, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with out there on the road?
Well, let's see. We had a call of a suicide attempt All he got was a guy shot himself, and he's in his house. So we get there, we walk in and see this guy laid out on a table in the dining room with a nail in his rib. So apparently he had shot himself in the chest with a nail gun, but he missed and he hit a rib. And he's screaming, "Get this out of me! Get this out of me!" And I kind of looked at him and I go, you dumbass, you have bad aim, you know?
Yeah, you need to get the claw into the hammer and just pull it out.
Well, I was going to say, I did say that. You might have a hammer, we'll just yank it out.
Yeah.
You know, but we didn't do that. Got to wait for rescue, come in, and finally they corrected him after he was done.
Yeah. Nail. This is like a framing gun, like the big nails.
Yeah.
And so it's stuck in a rib, so it's sticking out a couple inches then.
Yes, it's sticking out of his chest in the rib. Yeah.
Well, the best thing could have happened to him. He tried to do it, and then he felt the pain, and he probably realized, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it'd be painful to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to a call once where these two girls were fighting over their or wrestling around with their dad's raccoon gun, and it was a .22 caliber pellet gun, and they had pumped it up 8 times. And while they were screwing around, drunk, of course, she fired it right between the girl's breasts. And we came in and we go, "What's the problem?" She goes, she just lifts up her shirt, bra and all, and goes, "She shot me." And it was wad cutter 22s. So there was a perfect hole right between her breasts where she got shot with that pellet gun. It was like unreal. And then she ended up passing out and coughing up blood because it actually went into her lung. That's from a BB gun, you know, or pellet gun. But yeah, your nail story kind of brought me back to that. That's nuts. Did the guy? I mean, you probably don't know, but did he end up remaining suicidal? Was he a frequent flyer?
I never saw him again. He was, we took him to the hospital, got him checked out. Then he was Baker acted, and after that, never saw him again. Gotcha.
Okay, Glenn, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call on the job?
Well, as I was a negotiator on SWAT for 13 years, and after a while, I became the lead negotiator. So I went out on most of the calls with the chief negotiator. We had a guy that was barricaded in his apartment, and he was shooting off a gun in the apartment. Not at anybody that we knew of, but he was just shooting off a gun. So I'm down the hallway from this apartment door with the SWAT guy behind one of the ballistic shields. And I'm talking to this guy for a short time, and he goes, "Okay, I'll come out. And he pops the door open just enough to stick the gun out, and he fired a round at us, hitting the shield.
Wow.
And then he just throws the gun down. And then they move in, they grab him, put him into cuffs. And I walked up on him and go, "What are you, dumbass? What'd you do that for? We just got to take you to the hospital. Now you have charges."
Yeah.
I said, "You're lucky the SWAT guy didn't kill you. So this is your lucky day."
Yeah, really?
Yeah, so it was a good thing I was behind that shield.
Yeah, and so being a negotiator, were you in full gear, or are you kind of dressed down a little bit?
It's dressed down. You have a shirt on. You have your duty belt on. You have a vest on.
Right.
But you're not in wasn't in a regular uniform like that would be on the road.
Yeah, that's nuts. What about you got you chosen to be a negotiator? Because I know for up here anyways, negotiators can be picked they can be asked to join. Like they don't necessarily have to be asked to join SWAT traditionally through the tryouts and all that. They can just say, "Hey, this guy's got a gift for gab," or whatever. How did you get kind of recruited?
Well, I knew the chief negotiator, who was the sergeant on the bomb squad, and they said they're going to be posting an opening for a negotiator on the team. So I go, "Well, it sounds like interesting. It sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like a lot of overtime." So I applied and with another sergeant, and we actually both got picked to be on the team. But then you had to go through the just the training, but you had to have an interview with the team. You had to have an interview with the SWAT commander. Then you had to go to a psychiatrist and go through all the written tests that they made you go through, it seemed like there was 3,000 questions you had to go through on these 3 or 4 different tests.
Wow.
Then you had to go through a practical exercise where they would, portray a hostage scene. And then they told you made it or you didn't make it. And that was it.
That's a lot more than I thought it would be. That's a lot of vetting out. Was there ever a moment, like, how they say, I don't know if this is true, but like for drill instructor school in the military, they have you just like scream at a post for half an hour as if it's a recruit. Did you have to speak gently on the phone for like a certain amount of time in front of a panel, anything like that?
Well, you had to do it in front of the SWAT leader. I mean, the hostage commander, right? And you were calling another room on the telephone, and it was whatever the scenario was. You had to try to come across calm and collective, and see if they come out. They don't come out. Obviously, they came out because they wanted to see how it was. And then when you went out on the first calls, it was basically sit back and watch and listen. And then from there, you start becoming the second guy on the negotiating team. You pair off, like after you're done talking, and I'll take it over, and go from there. And that's how you learned until you became to the point where you could be on your own.
Yeah, your first call out without training wheels as a negotiator has got to be pretty intense. I mean, you're gonna be, it could make or break the whole situation,
Well, yeah. When I was doing my first negotiation, I happened to, the sheriff always showed up on him, and this one particular night, I'm in this house across the street talking to the guy, and the sheriff comes in with his wife, and he sits down next to me after we've been there for about an hour, and he's going, "Come on, Topping, get this thing ended. It's a lot of overtime I'm paying out here."
Nice motivation, right?
I said, "Sheriff, I'm trying, Sheriff, please, just leave me alone." And eventually, about another half hour later, he came out, no problem.
Yeah, because you can't, as far as I can tell, I did some drills with, I was a simunition instructor, so like when the SWAT team where I was would train, sometimes I would be there. It's just kind of like, reload the guns and help run the course or whatever, make sure everybody was safe. But I remember when they were training, I was just gleaning things from what they were saying. You can't like promise too much to the kid, like unrealistic things.
Right.
You see the movies and they're like, I want a helicopter on the roof, a large cheese pizza, a beer, and they're like, whatever you want, we're going to get it for you. But no,
right.
He's going to figure out that you're not delivering. And if there's people in there, if it's not just a barricaded subject, if he's got hostages, and they could pay the price. So, I mean, what do they kind of give you, like, guidelines for that? Like, don't overextend your hand type of thing?
Well, yeah, don't say that, I'll trade out, I want a gun, I'll send out a hostage.
Right.
That's not happening. I've traded food for hostages before, cigarettes, nothing, no weapons, no drugs, no alcohol. All right. And you kind of had to work around it because you really want to say no, because no is final. There's no working around it. No is no.
Right.
It's like, let me see what I can do. Let me check with my boss. But in the meantime, show some good faith. Get this guy out, or you just come out, one or the other. Every situation is very, very different. Yeah,
you kind of try to, I'm sure as you do it, you get more information from them so you can kind of see how they're thinking or why are they in this situation, what would help them resolve it. Because I remember hearing some really scary ones where they're, usually it's like the, if it's like religious ideation, like that type of thing, like it's like much harder because now it's like you're negotiating against their God. So, you know what I mean? Like whoever they think is in their mind, religious extremists, that's got to be the more difficult kind. But all right, I thought I'd ask you that because it's always interested me, the hostage negotiation stuff, and kind of wondered how they would vet you out for that. And I noticed you're from New York.
Yes.
New Yorker. All right. Yes, they probably figured this guy from New York's got a mouth on him. We'll get him out. We'll get these Southern boys out with the New Yorker.
Well, sometimes a few curse words positioned properly. Sometimes, it's just the matter. Listen, why don't you stop being a jerk and walk out? Okay, I'll come out. Then they come out, and then they get slammed down by the SWAT guys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now we're going to make you regret that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Can you describe to us your first book you wrote, The Hurt? It was a real life scenario that happened with the drive-by shooting. Can you kind of give us that story and everything that led up to it?
Oh, yeah. Back in the early 80s, before police work, I was working in this rock and roll club in South Florida here. And we had just thrown out a couple of girls for being drunk and disorderly. So one of them happens to fall down and cuts her chin. The boyfriends walk out, and the girls are screaming that we beat them up. So we told her we didn't beat them up, get the hell off the property.
This
so
is like
a
police security detail type of thing?
I was a bouncer in this rock and roll club.
Oh, you weren't a cop?
No, this is right before.
Okay.
Right before police work.
Gotcha, okay.
And one of the guys turns to me and goes, I'm going to come back here with a gun and kill everybody. So I said, yeah, get the hell out of here. We hear that all the time.
Right. Sure you are.
Well, at closing, about 3:30 in the morning, in my car at the front door with my roommate and a girl, we're giving a ride home. And there's about 10 or 12 people walking around in the parking lot leaving. Most of them were the employees and a couple of patrons. So as I'm starting to back up, my roommate goes, hey, don't go, there's a car coming behind you. So I look to my right, and I see an old station wagon coming from my right to left. And just when he gets right behind me, I hear all these gunshots. So my windows get shot out of my car while I'm sitting in it.
Jeez.
I jump out of the car. I tell my friend, hey, get down, there's somebody shooting. So I get down and I lay down between the car and my car next to me. And I look on the ground, I look under the car, and I see a lot of people laying on the ground screaming and crying. And the guard takes off out of the parking lot and flees down the street. So everybody's starting to get up. I get out and I walk around, looking around, and except this one bouncer is laying on the ground. So I run over to him, and I see that he took a bullet in the back.
Ooh.
So I lean him up in my lap while I'm sitting on the ground. I put my finger in the bullet hole trying to stop the bleeding. And then the medics call, the fire department comes, the police come, they take him to the hospital, but he died on the way to the hospital. Meanwhile, these guys that took off down the street about a mile or two down the road, they get into an accident. And the police do the accident report, not knowing that we just involved in a murder. And they let them go, and they leave.
Oh, jeez.
So a short time later, they find out who they were, and they find out that they got rid of the car, and they got rid of the gun, and then they fled the area. One fled out of the state, the other one fled up to North Florida. So a short time later, they found them, they brought him back, and to stand trial for first-degree murder. So one guy went to one trial. It took three trials to get him convicted because they kept getting hung juries. Finally, on the third trial, they got him convicted. He's sent up to into the prison up north. Then the next trial went one time. He gets convicted, so they're both up in prison. Now, fast forward about 7 years later, one of the guys gets raped in jail and contracts AIDS, and the family pleads with the governor to pardon him so he can go home and die instead of dying in prison. And the governor grants it. So he gets out. I guess he died at home. About a year later, the other guy escapes prison in a laundry truck and is on the run for over 10 years before the U.S. Marshals finally find him.
10 years?
And then bring him back to prison. Yeah, 10 years, yeah.
Wow.
And he went back to prison. I'm not sure if he's still there or not. I'm not sure. But then the story followed all the antics back at the Rock and Roll Club. Back in the 80s, it was the cocaine cowboy days. So we had a lot of cocaine use in the club, overdoses, fights, up-and-coming musicians that are still around today, including Johnny Depp, who worked there.
Oh, Johnny Depp worked there?
Yeah, Johnny Depp and I are fairly good acquaintances.
What was his? I had Joe Pistone on the show, who was Johnny Depp's movie Donnie Brasco. Was based on Joe Pistone's undercover work.
Right.
What was Johnny Depp doing? Bartending or he's too little to work the door?
No, he
isn't
was. Yeah, he was. He was one of the guitar players, one of the house bands called the Kids.
No kidding.
So he played in the club for a while, quite a long time. And then one night he goes, listen, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go to California. I'm going to try out for this TV show, 21 Jump Street.
Wow.
Okay, have fun. Be careful out there. Have fun. And then, you know what? Boom, after that.
Yeah, that's all she wrote. That's the rest is history. So what kind of guy was he? A good dude?
Yeah, he was a good guy. Typical, young teenager back then. Was it like 18, 19 years old, I guess. He loved to have a party with the guys after work.
Sure.
Do his own thing, whatever that was. But it was kind of ironic as though about many years later, it was about 1 year before I retired from the sheriff's office, in this club here in the city of Pompano Beach, they were doing a reunion of all these 80s bands. And I was in charge of the police crowd control for the detail there. So I had about 10 other deputies working with me. And we got word that Johnny Depp is coming in by bus with his entourage and his bodyguard. He's going to play with his old band.
Oh, that's cool.
So, so we had to set up a secure area for him. So I told my guys, listen, I know Johnny. I'll introduce you to him. Oh, you're full of crap. Get out of here. You don't know him. All right, no problem. So he comes in, he gets off the bus, he's talking with a few people, and I yell over, hey, Johnny, come here. And he's looking over me. Why is that cop calling me over? Right? So I'm in uniform.
Yeah.
So he kind of saunters over with his bodyguard, and he's looking at me, and he goes, Glenn, I haven't seen you in a long time. How you been? Hey, we're good. So good to see you, John. And let me introduce you to the guys. And he shakes their hand. Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. That's all right, Johnny. I'll talk to you backstage. And the guys go, you really do know. That was pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah. So have you seen him since then?
No, I haven't, but I've been trying to get a hold of him because I have a movie script, The Hurt, that I'd love him to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the impossible part.
Very impossible.
Getting hold of people like that. I know when I was in California for a short time, I knew people who were on the periphery of people that really skyrocketed, and they were like friends. But eventually they kind of get like more and more distant, and before you know it, you can't even talk to them. It's like, you know, it's I think they just kind of like retract kind of to protect themselves type of deal.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to get a hold of somebody like that. Well, that's it. That's fascinating. The old Johnny Depp, huh?
Yeah, I'd love to get a hold with my script, which is The Hurt.
Yeah, hey, well, who knows? Maybe he's a fan of Things Police See. Maybe he's going to be reaching out to me to get a hold of you. You owe me big time, Glenn, if that happens.
That'd be good. I will owe you, it's right.
Oh, man, that's awesome. I had something else pop up I want to ask you. All right, I'm sure I'll think of it. Can you tell us about a heartwarming story from the job?
Well, as a negotiator, I always thought it was probably one of the best things to do was to save somebody's life that was really in despair.
Sure.
It gave me, it made me feel good, whether it be doing on a negotiation, getting somebody out, or doing CPR on somebody and saving their life. I always said it was more rewarding than anything else I've ever done.
Absolutely. You got a specific example, or are you just making a statement about it?
Well, no, I've had several times.
You're leaving me hanging. I'm like, okay.
Oh, okay. I had this little kid, autistic kid, that wound his way into a lake and drowned.
Oh, wow.
And when I got there, I saw him at the edge of the water, and I dragged him out real quick, and I started doing CPR on him until the medics got there. And then they took over, and he was saved.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that's a great one. What a save that is, huh?
Right. Then they had another one where it's a guy was in a crash, and we responded to it, and he bumped into somebody in the rear, and he went into cardiac arrest. And the other deputy that I was with had an AED unit in his car, so we dragged him out of the car, put him on the ground, and I was doing we hooked up the AED, and I was doing the breaths with the ambu bag, and we got him back to life until the medics came and they took him. He survived.
That's great. Isn't it amazing when somebody comes back from AED or from CPR? It's like, it actually works.
Oh, it's crazy.
Because, I mean, 9 times out of 10 you do it, it doesn't work. Or more than, 99 times out of 100, it just doesn't work.
You just have to go through the motions to make it look like you're doing something, but sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible.
And when I was a rookie cop, I did it on some lady that was stabbed 4 times in the chest. And every time I pushed down on her chest, I had 4 sprouts of blood pushing up.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't survive. But, you have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You always got to, and especially if there's family there or friends, and it's like,
sure,
like elderly people, like you're doing it, and it's like the ribs are breaking, and you're like,
yeah,
it's not going to do anything, but it's helping the family because they feel like something's being done, and
sure,
they can transport then and try to keep working. And
oh yeah,
it is hard. That's one of my least favorite parts of the job is like medical emergencies. Like that's why I would never be like an EMT or firefighter. I just if that was all I dealt with, I would not want to do it. I'd be like, I like being the guy that puts like a towel on it, and I'm like, don't worry, they're coming. They're guys that know what's happening are coming.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
understand.
I don't want to be the guy, in the back with the meat wagon with him the whole time trying to do it. I
agree.
I don't have the stomach for it. It's tough when you go to some calls that are like, or like a horrific accident and you're looking at something and you're just like, you can't, there's people, you can't be like, oh my gosh, you're not, that's horrible. It's like, you got to play it cool. Otherwise you're giant.
You just,
giant
the
jerk.
training kicks in, you do your thing. That's all.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. Glenn, I want to ask you about military policing. Do you have any shenanigans back from being a military cop?
Well, I can confirm nor deny that I had shenanigans. But, well, when I first got there, I had to work in the stockade, and where it was a pre-trial detention facility for the soldiers that were waiting trial outside in the States, and it was from murder on down to minimal crimes. It was amazing. We had a little bit of a riot in one of the jails, and our captain was caught in the middle. So we went in there and were able to get him out and save him. I only came up with a broken finger. And when promotions came around, myself and another officer, or another another soldier got promoted to sergeant. So when I got promoted to sergeant, I went to the road. I went to road patrol into a different part of the city. And there was, patrolling downtown. I was in Nuremberg, Germany.
Oh, wow.
And all our patrol was in the city of Nuremberg and on the base mainly, but in the city, dealing with the GIs that got themselves in trouble all the time. And we worked really well with the German cops. They loved the MPs. They loved them.
Really? How much authority did they give you guys? Like, if you're in part of their city, did they cross deputize you or whatever? Or? No,
we just if a soldier was involved in something, then we would respond to it and take control of it. If it was a soldier assaulted a German national, they would take it and then turn them over to us if they do whatever they do with them. And then we would take them to our jail and process them, and then we would get them out.
Right, kind of. So there's not like an international event.
No international incidents.
Right, exactly. We kind of take them and punish them ourselves.
We had a lot of trouble. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, were you guys allowed to carry guns out into the German city?
Oh, yeah, sure. We were fully armed. Back then, it was just our 45 and a nightstick. That's all we had. And we'd have radios. Radio was in the car or the Jeep that you drove.
I was just going to say, I'm picturing you pulling up like in a Jeep and being like, the troublemakers are over there. And there's a bunch of soldiers, drunk and, goosing women, and you have to round them up.
Oh, they'll send you a picture of me just standing outside your Jeep in northern Germany in 0-degree weather.
Yeah, please do, because I'll put it on the Facebook. I'll put it on the show art, so you're on there.
Okay. So then we dealt with there was a castle downtown Nuremberg where it was like a youth hostel. A lot of Americans hung out there. And we used to have, talk to people all over the world. They used to stay there. It was a lot of fun. Had a couple of good high-speed chases, chasing drunk GIs around the city. We got put on a radio call-in radio show. They were parked outside our station. Do you want to dedicate a song to anybody back home? That kind of thing.
That's cool.
Yeah. My first arrest was a full bird colonel for DUI. And, of course, it made me look like an idiot in court. He won. I lost.
Yeah. I often wonder how that works. I just had an airman on who was talking about, he's an MP and has been for like 13 or 15 years. And like your clientele is other soldiers. So it's like, that's got to be kind of awkward and strange to start.
Yeah, it was.
Especially when you're dealing with a rank structure that kind of is probably supposed to go out the window when you're dealing with justice. That's not supposed to matter. But you can't tell me a full bird colonel is going to take the same lickings that a E3 or whatever is going to take.
No. And we're always told that you're always one rank higher than the person you're dealing with. So I was like a one-star general. I was like a one-star general dealing with a colonel.
Wow, that's amazing. They'd even say that, but that's the mindset you have to have. Otherwise, you can be cowering the whole time. The guy's a colonel,
Oh yeah.
Start ordering your ass around. You'd be like, oh, I guess I have to do what you're saying. I don't know.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Man, yeah, military policing is fascinating to me. I used to do backgrounds for LAPD as a civilian background guy, and we'd go to the bases around Southern California, and it was like, had a bad driving history, and it was all on the base. And these are your These are your brother Marines writing you speeding tickets, which tells me you probably were caught for speeding 100 times more than they've written you for, because these guys weren't hammering traffic citations, but they were probably pissed off. Like, hey man, you're making us look like idiots.
Yeah.
I always thought
to do my job.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to get written up.
Right.
Geez, that's really interesting. I've never really heard of I've never heard stories from an MP who was working in Europe. That's pretty cool, because you hear the Germany and those other countries in Europe nowadays, like modern time policing is like their rules of engagement and what they can do it's so difficult.
I'm sure it's very different today.
Yeah, like now they like I used to go take my dog on walks on the Cape at this park, and there was this guy I ran into a couple times. He was a German guy, and we chatted enough that he found out I was a police officer, and we talked, and he said, my son's a police officer in Germany. And he was like, you know what's terrible? He goes, he has to be shot at for him to use his gun. Pretty much. Like he said, nice. he pretty much was told there needs to be gunfire your way. Oh. And I was like, well, that's like, we go one level above.
The opposite.
Yeah, we take it to the next level ourselves. And then I said, damn, that's kind of a rough way to police. But at the same time, their people don't have the same freedoms we have. Their citizenry is, they're more open to what would be illegal searches here, and they don't even have freedom of speech. Like, you can't say certain things in public, or else you're under arrest. So, I don't know. That's what they call it, tangent, Glenn. But yeah, that's it absolutely fascinates me, that military policing. And you did that for 5 years. And when you became the rank of sergeant, they were like, all right, cut them loose. Did they give you like a field training, like, hey, this is how you police, or did you already have the MP school and they figured that was good enough?
Well, I had the MP school, and then when I got to my base as the sergeant, I went out with the other sergeant, and just to see what's happening, how to do roll call, how to do inspections, uniform and gun inspections, learn the area, and then you're on your own.
Yeah,
this is going back in the early 70s.
Yeah, we've all worked at a police department that you wish there was actually inspections that happened. They're like they're probably squared away in the military, but you see some real soup sandwiches walking the streets as cops.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I mean,
no, in my policing here in Florida, we had inspections.
Okay,
uniform inspections, vehicle inspections, gun inspection, and if it wasn't right, go make it right. That's all.
Right. Yeah, that's it's not really that much in the culture where I'm at. It's not hard to look passable as a police officer. You just, but I don't know if people realize this, like when you wear a uniform like that, you can hang it up when you're done and wear it the next day if it's pretty good. Maybe not in Florida because it's 1,000 degrees. But you can kind of get, but there's certain things that happen to your uniform from wearing it that you can't get away from. One of them is touching your uniform with your hands makes skin cells rub into your uniform. So you can, if you're listening and you're not a police officer, pay attention to police officers, because if you see a guy that has up here has white, it's white around here, that's because he puts his hands in his outer carrier and he doesn't wash it. Right. So, if you look down here by the stomach, if that's white and looks off, that's because when he sits down, he pushes his belly behind his gear. But I know that because I have to do that when I'm wearing a duty belt. I have to, because I got a little bit of a gut. So even if your uniform stays clean, after 2 or 3 days of doing that, you look like crap anyways because of the skin cell. Sure. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because I'm a redhead and my skin cells are, I'm always flaking.
Well, listen, the sheriffs wore white shirts.
Oh, so beautiful.
It was nice. Not anymore. They don't wear white anymore. But when I was working, wore white shirts, and you really couldn't wear the same shirt the next day.
I was going to say, that must actually be a nightmare for coffee, anything.
Anything. Yeah. So they finally went to dark green.
There
you don't see much of anything on them.
Yeah, dark green's beautiful. I wore that. I was a natural resource officer for 4 years, and we wore like the spruce green. Yeah. You could wear those babies for a while. It's nice.
Of course, after I retired, they went to the nicer uniforms and nicer cars, SUVs.
Of course. That's absolutely the way it works.
I had to leave for them to do that.
Yep. Yeah, but it's a sliding scale because like the job got like more annoying in PC, but they've made it more comfortable with cooler toys. So it's it's like a trade-off.
Yes.
Glenn, can you tell me, this is a real popular question for the guests to answer, especially somebody with your experience. Can you give the listener or prospective police officer some advice for people who are joining the police departments or looking to do it? What would be your sage advice?
Well, always be upfront and be truthful. You don't want to be called a liar because if you go to court, first thing the defense attorney is going to ask you, well, you're lying now or you're lying then? And you can't get away from it.
Right.
So as a sergeant, I sat on the oral review boards when the new candidates came in and we were doing the interviews with them. And after we were done, I would say, listen, if you go through the process, as you go through it, be honest and upfront because we're going to find out.
Right.
All right. And if you're honest and upfront now, you can work through whatever that problem was, maybe, unless it's a legal issue. But you get on the job, do your job, get your training kick in. Don't go above board. Mm-hmm. Don't be brutal. Now, remember, back then there was no cameras when I started.
Right.
Now there's cameras everywhere, plus the body cams. So you're going to be on video somewhere, whether you like it or not.
Right. So
be professional, do your job. When the handcuffs go on, the fight's over. That's it. Right. And be upfront and truthful. You got to be truthful because if not, you might as well go work in 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Once that's gone, you're done. You can't testify. No one
no, you can't.
It's no good. I used to say it all the time when I would do somebody's background. First thing I would say to a candidate for the beginning of the background process, I would say just what you said. I would say be honest and upfront because I'm telling you right now, 80% of what you think is a problem, we can get through. But if you tell a little lie about it right now and we find out later, it's not the thing that's the problem. It's the little lie.
Right.
And you know how many phone calls I had to make or bring a candidate in and go, remember that conversation we had about that little lie? It just got uncovered and you're done. And not only are you done, you're done anywhere in California.
Right.
Because now anybody who gives me a waiver, I'm going to give them your background and it says you're a liar.
Yeah.
It's such a kid thing to do, such a juvenile thing to do. It just kind of shows they're not mature enough anyways to be a police officer. But man, I like those oral boards, man. Those scenario-based questions. What would you do? Oh, yeah. Your partner takes a bottle of booze from a store owner because he's been watching the shop for it. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to be a narc, but also I know that I can't be dishonest.
Right. Because that's going to come back. The other guy will say, well, the other officer was there. He saw it.
Right. Yeah, he likes it too. It's my uncle's dad was a old-time copper in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is one of the larger cities. And this is back, his nickname was Six Pack Jack. And back in the day, Jack Riley, he was just like a staple of the police department. He was there like 40 plus years. But on the holidays, and he passed away and he was like in his late 80s and he passed away like 10 years ago. So he was a cop way back 40s, 50s. And as a senior patrol guy on holidays, he would drive around to all the businesses and he'd get the case of lobster, the case of whiskey, the beer, and then he would bring it to the brass. He would bring it to the chief, the deputy chief, the captain. And it was like, and this is, old school Springfield, Massachusetts, where it's all like Irish immigrants. And it's just like, man, that is not the way it is anymore. No one's delivering you lobster and filet mignon on Christmas Eve,
No, I don't think so.
No. Yeah, I'm not saying that was right, but it is neat to harken.
It's just the way it was.
Harken back. Yeah, that was
right.
It was almost like the local sheriff gets a pig every month or something. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, hey, you don't make a lot of money, but we're gonna give you some niceties here or whatever.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. Glenn, thanks for coming on the show, brother. Where can people find your stuff? Do you have a website or is it Amazon or what?
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, or Nook. and
Okay.
exlibris.com, which is the publisher.
We'll do this. When we hang up, sounds like your Ring doorbell's going off. When we hang up, send me an email with the links you want me to put in the show notes, and then I'll put that on the website as well. That way,
okay, great.
You have exactly what you want in there. And also, to Johnny Depp, his publicist, agent, or anybody else who might have a connection to him, reach out to Glenn Topping because he has a script for you. And I want to see that baby made, and I want to see
It'll be a winner.
Yeah, and I want to see like just my name somewhere as like associate producer, something, so I can have a claim to this.
Hey, you never know.
It's all about me, Glenn. That's how I do it.
Of course it is.
All right, brother. It was an honor to have you on, my man. I'm going to do the outro to the show. Can you hang out for a second?
Sure.
Right. Hey, guys. Episode number 113. Glenn Topping. Great interview with Glenn. A lot going on there, from cops to policing in Germany, military policing, police sergeant, Broward County. Really fun interview. Thank you to him for coming on. Guys, thank you for all the continued support. I know I really, really hammer this at you, but the 5-star review on Apple, please keep them coming. I love it. I love to go to my phone and refresh and see it come up. And if you've already done it, maybe take your dad's phone, your mom's phone, your sister, any phone around you, go to the app and this 5-star. Get it done dirty. I don't care how it gets done. I appreciate it. Thank you for the Patreon supporters. If you love the show and you really want to show your support that way, go ahead and go to the link, the Patreon link in the show notes, or go to thingspolicec.com, scroll down, click donate or support. Also, if you want to be a guest on the show, thingspolicec.com, scroll down to be a guest, click on that, submit your message, and I'll get back to you forthwith, and we'll get you on here. So that's it for this week, guys. I'll catch you next time.